that aren't related to known space. Like a world at a time is a separate, and that's a separate milieu entirely from known space, right?
Yes, I've worked in several universes.
What is known space the one closest to your heart, or have you kind of moved on from it and you're more interested in something else now?
The truth is, I've lost some faith in the funny assumptions of known space. I prefer working in a slower than light universe. This isn't just a matter of literary technique. It's harder to write in a slower than light universe because you can't go anywhere you want as fast as you want. On the other hand, you can generate stories from the assumptions. But mainly, in a slower than light universe, it becomes less likely that some alien is going to barge into our universe and change all the rules. After all, if the universe is 13.7 billion years old, and the sun, the solar system, is only 5 billion years old, that's 8 and a fraction billion years in which aliens could have an advance upon us. The oldest aliens in the universe might be, 3 to 4 to 5 billion years old. And that's even allowing for time for lots of supernovae to generate lots of matter besides hydrogen and helium so that we can have planets. The alien we're going to find is likely to arrive here before we go there. And we may not like it. I feel safer in a slower than light universe.
We might not like it, especially if they have the general products. Oh, we can't shoot them down. Isn't that interesting, though, that it seems to be that, like, in the first few decades of sort of modernish science fiction, authors were always trying to find a way to justify and to go faster than light. And then once everybody was going faster than light, then start thinking, oh, well, wait a minute, here's the problems that come from that. Maybe we should back off again and it's more interesting to write slower than light.
That is the way it went. Not just with me, but
right.
with lots of writers.
Yeah.
Today's hard science fiction is a lot harder than yesterday's. The Ringworld today would be considered soft science fiction. There are too many funny assumptions. Faster than light travel, 3 kinds of ultra-strong materials.
Well, I think a lot of very, very modern hard science fiction almost uses the tech stuff like product placement, like, ooh, look what this writer knows about. Look what I know about that I read in Popular Science yesterday or something. Your stuff never came across that way. Your stuff always seemed very organic, like it was just part of the universe and everybody knew about it and it was just already there. It never seemed like, oh, look what I just found out about it.
I'm glad it seemed that way because that takes a lot of work. But but on the contrary, I was simply showing off what I knew, hoping to get into print before somebody else with the newest developments.
Well, and that takes us back to the coldest place, right? Because the original idea was that the coldest place in the solar system, I'm sure you've been asked this a million times, but it was the dark side of Mercury, because they thought that it was tidally locked, right?
Yes.
And it was somewhere in there, right around the process of you sending it in, that they found something different.
Shortly after I cashed the check, the news broke from Russia, not that Mercury was spinning differently from the way we thought, but that Mercury had an atmosphere and lost it continually because it's so small, but continually gained it back because of the solar wind. It's all hydrogen. Then they discovered Mercury rotated 1.5 times per year. But by then, I cashed the check, the story got printed, I was off and running. $25.
You didn't want to go in and let any liquid paper over it and say Pluto or something.
Never crossed my mind. But you've got the technique down pat.
Well, while we're talking about your technology a little bit, I've always wondered this. If there was one of your pieces of technology that you've come up with and used in these stories that you could actually have in real life, which one would you choose?
Man, I'm 75 years old. I choose something medical. I choose the autodox. Well, of course, if I could get, I'd use booster spikes, of course, if we were that advanced. How good are you at granting wishes?
Well, I got a flashlight laser's all fine and dandy and fancy, but yeah, I guess it doesn't have a lot of medicinal properties. So, okay, well that's cool. Did a couple of other things before I ask the audience. You're famous for doing a number of different collaborations with different authors, and
yes,
most famously, I guess, Jerry Purnell. Tell us a little bit about. Tell us a little bit about working with Jerry and how that has gone over the years.
Okay. In most cases, my collaborator has tracked me down, stalked me. It was true for Stephen Barnes. He's told me about how he did it, and it was true for Jerry, who braced me at a convention. Not a science fiction convention actually, but the first DragonCon, a detective story convention. Tracked me down, suggested we collaborate. I'd already done a collaboration with David Gerald and enjoyed it very much. So I said, sounds like fun, let's give it a try. We got together one night and Jerry had his empire of 1,000 worlds, all of it human. And I had this leftover alien from a novel that hadn't gelled. And I I realized that his faster-than-light drive allowed planets within his empire that had never been touched. He had a sort of a gateway combination worked up for him by Dan Aldrich, the Caltech's sane genius, they called him. Dan Aldrich. He did a lot of work with us. He worked up the Alderson drive. I looked it over and realized I could have planets set within the empire, and I put one behind the coal sack where it couldn't be discovered. I should say we by now. Jerry and I were exchanging ideas at a furious rate over coffee and brandy. We took my alien, planted it in the right place, worked up a dozen species of varieties of modis. And at that point we were off and running, I thought. I thought he was, I took a trip to England with my wife shortly thereafter, and I figured he was working on the book. Maybe he was working on the book. He didn't generate any text, but that is the way Jerry Purnell works, I've gradually found out. He does a lot of study and then plunges in. Me, I suck it out of my fingertips. At any rate, that was a mote in God's eye, and it took us a long time, longer than we expected, by a lot. Twice running, Philosophists gave Jerry and me their award for best unpublished novel, because we talked about it so much. And then we sent it to Jerry sent it to Robert Heinlein because they were old friends. I knew the man, but only by a little. Jerry sent the book to him. Robert went through it and made some suggestions and said, if you'll do it this way, I'll be able to say this is the best science fiction novel I ever read. And we took his suggestions. That sounds so easy, doesn't it? But Robert Heinlein suggestions for a friend to use, and never seen all of them used. He was stuck. In his own mind, he was stuck. He looked through the altered manuscript and did an entire proofreading job on it. I can tell you these things now because Robert is dead. He made us swear never to tell anybody that he'd done that while he was still alive. Can you imagine how many friends Robert Heinlein had who would have wanted him to do a full proofreading job on their next book? Ooh. Yeah. At any rate, that's what started my work with Jerry Bruno. We were in the middle of the second novel to be called Oath of Fielding, when it dawned on me that I hiked with him and drank with him, and eventually it became only hiking, but that was much later. It dawned on me that this guy kept talking about religion, God, comparative religion, theological subjects and puzzles. He was the perfect guy to do something I've been daydreaming about without any real intent. A sequel to Dante's Inferno. Now, mind you, a sequel to Dante's Inferno takes a certain amount of arrogance, even though everybody has played in that man's playground. I put it to Jerry. I made him write it with me. And I should tell you about Simon and Schuster. They always do something, they're always profitable, but they always do something dreadful. In this case, they tied Inferno to A Mote in God's Eye, which means that the money for the royalties for A Mote in God's Eye go to pay off the advance for Inferno. A thing publishers sometimes do when they've got not much faith in a book. The assumption, however, is that they'll publish the damn thing. They used up our royalties to cover the advance before anyone ever got around to doing that. You guys are mostly youths, I think, so you haven't been deprived of a book, but the oldest among you didn't see the book for 2 or 3 years. What else would you like to know about collaborating with Gary?
Well, let's see. So you did The Mote in God's Eye, you did Inferno, and then maybe the one that's, certainly Mote in God's Eye is very well known.
Lucifer's Hammer is the one that's going to change the future. Here's how that happened, because it's a pretty interesting writer's story. Robert Gleason had worked on several of our books before working on Mote in God's Eye. He was going to work on Inferno, but he changed jobs. Now he was at Playboy Books. He phones Jerry, and he says, it's time in this field for a book about an invasion of Earth in present time by aliens. And Jerry comes over to my house, because we were working at my house because his office was tiny at the time. Jerry says, Bob Gleason says it's time to do a novel about an invasion of Earth by aliens. And I laughed, and then I said, I hope you broke it to him gently that it had been done. Jerry says, yeah, but Robert thinks it hasn't been done well since the War of the Worlds, which excludes some of Heinlein's books, which is too bad. At any rate, we got to talking. I had not quite tumbled just how good a man Robert Gleason was in the science fiction field. I thought he'd come to me as sort of a mundane who dabbled. Not the case. He was dead right every time he predicts a trend. He's right. At this point, he's working for Tor Books. At that books. Jerry and I got together and started talking alien invasion. This is a difficult task, more than you might think. You not only want an alien who can invade the Earth with full force, you want an alien who can do that and lose. Remember what I told you? The alien likely to invade us has been a civilized, tool-using civilization for billions of years. We kind of cheated. We sent them from Alpha Centaurus, which is the closest star, or stars, and we made them a little clumsy. They had inherited their planet from a race that ruined their environment, and therefore they've been evolved as a baby, as an elephant would evolve under such circumstances. The elephant wound up dwarfed and with a bifurcated trunk. So it's got 8 digits. It thinks in terms of eighths and regards itself as incomplete unless there are around 8 of them.
Well, now, were you talking about football?
Yeah, we're still talking about footfall as it began to generate.